Hey everyone, ready to dive into something kind of wild? Google's Gemini 2.0.
Yeah, it's really taken off.
It feels like everyone's talking about it. That whole hashtag Gemini 2 launch thing is everywhere.
Yeah, people seem either blown away or like a little freaked out, which I get, to be honest.
Exactly. So we're going to break it all down. Doesn't matter if you're an AI expert or totally new to this stuff.
Absolutely. I think what's really got people's attention is, well, it's almost like a whole new way of interacting with technology, you know?
Right. Like it's not just another chatbot. This feels
It's
different.
totally different. It's like, remember those sci-fi movies where computers actually understand you?
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
And this multimodal mastery thing everyone's talking
Yeah.
about, that's a big part of it, right?
Hmm.
I've been messing around with it, and it's honestly pretty impressive.
It is. That's the core of what sets Gemini 2.0 apart.
So for those of us who aren't AI experts, what does multimodal even mean?
Basically, it means it can work with, well, everything. Text, images, audio, video, all at the same time. Think about how we communicate as humans. It's not just words, right? We use gestures, expressions.
So Gemini's catching up to that.
Exactly. It's trying to create that same natural, intuitive experience.
So instead of just typing a search, I could like show it a picture, hum a tune, and it'd get what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. And get this, it's supposed to be twice as fast as the old version. They're talking about a context window of 2 million tokens.
Okay, 2 million. That sounds like a lot, but I have no idea what that actually means.
So think of those tokens like the AI's short-term memory. With 2 million, it can remember and process crazy long and complicated stuff. Like you could have this whole back and forth conversation building on each idea.
And it wouldn't lose the thread.
Nope, it remembers it all. So naturally, it can give you much more accurate and relevant answers.
That's kind of wild. It's like having a conversation with someone who's actually paying attention and remembers everything you said.
Exactly that. And get this, it's also deeply integrated with other Google services.
Like Google search.
Especially search. That means Gemini has access to this massive, constantly updated knowledge base.
Wait, so it's not just processing what I tell it directly, it's pulling in information from the real world too.
You got it. Say you ask it to help plan a trip. It could check real-time weather, flights, even restaurant reviews.
All at the same time.
Yep, all while considering your budget, your preferences. It's amazing.
It's like having a super smart travel agent in your pocket.
And that's where we get into this whole idea of agentic AI. It's not just about understanding info, it's about actually acting on it.
Okay, agentic AI. Now we're getting into some serious sci-fi territory. What does that even look like in real life?
Okay, so picture this. You're running late for a meeting. You just tell Gemini, and it takes care of everything. Reschedules, notifies everyone, maybe even orders you a car.
Whoa. That's next level. It's like a personal assistant who can actually make things happen in the real world.
Exactly. And it gets even wilder when you think about how Gemini can create things, not just process them. It can generate images, music, even videos based on what you tell it.
Wait, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just finding existing stuff, it's making new things. How does that even work?
Well, think of it like this. You describe something, maybe a scene or a feeling, in as much detail as possible. Gemini takes that text and, using its understanding of the world and all those creative tools, turns it into something visual or auditory.
Okay, now that's just blowing my mind. But the stuff we've been looking at includes this user guide, and it actually seems pretty straightforward to use. Like you can access it through Google Workspace or as a separate app.
They've definitely tried to make it user-friendly. You can type commands, upload images, even just talk to it like you would a person.
So it can handle those really basic requests, but also the more complex stuff.
Yep, it's designed to do it all.
I really like that they've included all these customization options too.
Hmm?
You can actually tweak how Gemini behaves based on what you need and how you like to work.
That personalization is key, I think, to making this tech feel like it really fits into our lives.
It's like having an AI assistant that's custom built just for you.
Yeah.
But all this power and flexibility, it does make you wonder about the potential downsides, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about data privacy. Gemini's so deeply integrated with all these Google services.
Exactly. How do we make sure our information is safe?
Yeah, that's a huge question. And honestly, this whole thing is raising some big questions about the future of AI and how it's going to impact our lives, which is exactly why we're here. To dive into those questions, explore the potential of Gemini 2.0, both the amazing opportunities and the challenges that come with it.
And speaking of challenges, One thing I noticed while using it is that it can be a little overwhelming at first.
I get that. It's a powerful tool. It takes time to learn how to use it effectively.
There's just so much there, so many features and options. It's hard to know where to even begin.
It's true. But the good news is there are tons of resources out there to help. Google has tutorials, guides.
And there's already this whole online community sharing tips and tricks, which is awesome.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to just jump in and experiment. That's the best way to learn. The more you use Gemini 2.0, the more you'll discover what it can do.
Well said. So, to wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I think we've covered a lot. This whole idea of multimodal mastery, the potential to blur the lines between the digital and physical worlds.
And we've touched on some of those challenges too, like data privacy and that learning curve we were just talking about.
For sure. But what really stands out to me is the sheer transformative potential of this technology. Gemini 2.0 feels like more than just a new piece of software. It feels like a glimpse into the future of how we interact with AI, how we work, how we create, maybe even how we think.
You said it. And we're just getting started. In the next part of our duck dive, we'll be looking at how Gemini 2.0 is already being used in the real world, what it might mean for different industries.
So stay tuned, because things are about to get even more interesting.
You can count on that. So, welcome back, everyone. Let's keep going with exploring what Gemini 2.0 could actually mean for our lives, both professionally and personally.
When I first started messing around with Gemini 2.0, it felt like I was using something straight out of the future. But the more I use it, the more I realize it's actually impacting the present in some pretty practical ways.
That's such a good point, yeah. It's easy to get, kind of swept up in the wow factor. But what really matters is how it changes our daily lives, right?
Absolutely. So where are we seeing the biggest impact so far? What's the real-world use case that's got everyone buzzing?
One area where it's really taking off is content creation. Like anyone who writes, makes videos, designs, anything visual, Gemini 2.0 is a total game changer.
Okay, I get how it can write stuff, like blog posts or emails. That's already pretty wild. But creating images or videos, how does that even work? That feels like magic to me.
It's not magic, it's machine learning. But yeah, I know what you mean. Imagine you describe a scene something like a bustling city street at night, neon lights reflecting off wet pavement.
Okay, yeah.
Gemini 2.0 can take that and turn it into an actual image, or even a short animated clip.
That's insane. And it's not just copying existing styles, right? It can actually come up with unique visuals based on what I tell it.
Exactly. The more specific and creative you are with your prompts, the more original the output will be. We're seeing artists using it for inspiration, musicians creating whole new sounds. It's really pushing the boundaries.
That's amazing. But if AI can do all that, doesn't it make you worry about jobs? Like, what happens to graphic designers or video editors if Gemini can do their work faster?
It's a valid concern for sure, and it's a conversation we need to be having, but I think it's less about replacing jobs and more about changing how we work.
More like a tool to enhance human skills, not eliminate them.
Exactly. Think about what Photoshop did for photography. It didn't replace photographers, right?
Yeah.
It gave them these powerful new tools.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Gemini 2.0 could do the same thing for creative professionals. Free them up to focus on the stuff that really needs a human touch.
So it's not about being afraid of the technology, it's about learning how to use it to our advantage. What about other areas? Beyond the creative stuff, where else is Gemini 2.0 making a difference?
Well, think about education. Teachers could use it to create all kinds of amazing resources, visual aids, personalized lesson plans, even interactive simulations.
So instead of spending hours making PowerPoints, a teacher could just ask Gemini to, generate a lesson plan on the solar system with interactive visuals.
Exactly. And it could even adjust those lessons for different students, based on how they learn best. That could make education so much more accessible and engaging for everyone.
Wow, that's a huge deal. And I bet businesses are already finding ways to use Gemini too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about marketing teams using it to create custom ad campaigns, analyze customer data, even design product prototypes. And customer service could use it to give instant, accurate answers to questions, even in different languages.
It's like this universal problem solver. But with so many potential uses, do you ever worry that people will become too reliant on AI? Like, what happens to our own critical thinking skills if we're always relying on Gemini to do the hard work for us?
That's a really interesting question. I think the key is to remember that AI is a tool. It's not a replacement for human judgment and decision-making.
So it's about finding the right balance. Using AI to help us, but not letting it do all the thinking for us.
Exactly. We have to be aware of the potential pitfalls and use it responsibly. But overall, I'm pretty optimistic about the future of AI. I think it can really help us solve problems, be more creative, and ultimately make life better.
It's definitely inspiring to think about all the possibilities. But it's important to remember that this tech is still new. We're just at the beginning. What are some things we need to keep in mind as AI keeps advancing so quickly?
That's a good point. One of the biggest challenges is going to be making sure AI is developed and used ethically. As it becomes more powerful, we have to make sure it's aligned with human values.
That makes sense. With a tool as powerful as Gemini, it's easy to imagine how it could be misused, whether intentionally or not.
Right. We need to be thinking about things like data privacy, bias in the algorithms, and making sure AI is accessible to everyone, not just a select few.
It's a lot to think about, but it's also incredibly exciting. We're living in a time where technology is changing everything, and it's up to all of us to shape the future of AI in a way that benefits humanity.
You put that perfectly. And as we keep going with this deep dive into Gemini 2.0, we'll keep exploring these issues and how they could impact the world around us.
I'd love to hear what our listeners think about all this. Have you tried Gemini 2.0 yet? What are you hoping for or worried about when it comes to the future of AI?
Definitely share your thoughts on social media. Use that hashtag Gemini2Experience hashtag. We'd love to hear from you.
And as we head into the final part of our deep dive, we're going to take a closer look at some of those real-world user experiences and reactions to Gemini 2.0. We'll share some of the incredible things people are already doing with it, as well as some of the challenges they're running into.
So stick with us for a fascinating glimpse into what Gemini 2.0 actually means for all of us.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into Gemini 2.0. We've talked about the tech itself, its potential, the concerns, but now it's time to hear from the people actually using it, right?
Yeah, that's always the most interesting part for me, seeing how people actually put it to work in their lives. Not just the theory, the real deal.
Exactly. And judging by what I've seen online, the reactions to Gemini 2.0 are, well, all over the place.
That's pretty normal with any new tech, especially something this disruptive.
Yeah, you've got your early adopters, the skeptics, and everyone in between. So let's dive into some of those user experiences. What are some of the most surprising or interesting ways people are using Gemini 2.0?
One that really caught my attention was there was this story about a deaf musician who's using Gemini to translate sign language into music.
Whoa, in real time.
Yeah, live.
That's incredible. So it's not just about translating languages, it's translating different forms of expression, like fundamentally different ways of communicating.
Exactly. That opens up so many possibilities, especially for accessibility and inclusivity.
Absolutely. We've also seen some really cool stuff with language translation, right?
Oh, yeah. People are using it to have conversations with others who speak different languages, breaking down those communication barriers. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. But we've also talked about some of the concerns with AI, things like bias and misinformation. Are those concerns playing out in how people are actually using Gemini?
Well, there have been a few cases where people have used it to create content that's, let's say, not entirely accurate or even intentionally misleading. But it's important to remember that AI, at its core, is a reflection of the data it learns from.
So if there are biases or inaccuracies in that data,
They can end up being reflected in what the AI produces.
yeah, that makes sense. So it's not that the AI itself is inherently biased. It's more that it's picking up those biases that already exist in the world.
You got it. And that's why it's so crucial to be aware of those biases, to talk about them openly and work towards creating better, more balanced data sets to train these AI models on.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Gemini 2.0, what are your final thoughts? What should our listeners take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're at a really important point in history. AI isn't some far-off future thing anymore. It's here now. And it's already starting to change our world in some pretty profound ways.
It's exciting, but also kind of intimidating, right?
Absolutely. But I do believe that with careful thought, ethical development, and a focus on using AI for good, well, I think it has the potential to create some amazing opportunities for progress and innovation.
I agree. And Gemini 2.0 is a really good example of that potential. It's incredibly powerful, but ultimately it's up to us how we use it. It's up to us to decide what kind of future we want to build with it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Right.
And as AI keeps evolving, it's crucial that we stay informed, stay engaged, and really take part in shaping how it develops and how it's used.
Couldn't agree more. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring Gemini 2.0. Share your experiences, good and bad. Enjoy the conversation about the future of AI. Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to come up with the next groundbreaking use for this incredible technology.
And remember, at the end of the day, technology is a tool for human progress. Let's make sure we use it wisely.
That's a perfect thought to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Gemini 2.0. We'll be back next week with another fascinating look at the cutting edge of tech. Until then, stay curious.